Hi guys, so this is the second part of the 10.6 lesson. So we're going to be continuing with what we were talking about on Monday. So remember on Monday we were talking about equations of circles. This is the second page of the notes from Monday, so it's actually all the same packet. So we were talking about equations of circles. So I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So that's my equation of a circle. Now, last time we were talking about having that equation and finding the center and finding the radius. This time we're kind of going to be doing the opposite. So we're going to be given either the radius in the center verbally or the radius in the center through the graph, and we'll have to write the equation of the circle below. All right, so I have two examples of each type, and then I do want to go through the IXL together, just a couple questions on my screen so you can see how IXL wants it formatted, just so that there's no silly mistakes that are made. So the directions say you want to write the equation of the circles below, given either the graph or its properties. So for 1 and 2, we're given the graph. When we write the equation of a circle, there's two things that we need to know. So before we even get started, we need to know the center, and we need to know the radius. So given a graph, it's just a matter of finding those two in the visual. So remember, the center is that middle point. So looking at this, I know my center is 0, 0. And then remember, given a graph, you can find your radius by going from the center all the way over to the edge of the circle and counting. So if I count, that is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my radius is 8. Now that I have that information, I can plug it into my standard form. So my standard form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Now I know that 8 is my r. I know that 0 is h and 0 is also k. So I can plug all of that in. So here I'm going to have x minus 0 squared plus y minus, again, 0 squared equals 8 squared. Now my last step would be to simplify everything. So whenever you're adding or subtracting 0, that doesn't change your answer. So I'm just going to make this x squared. Whenever you're adding or subtracting 0, that's always just going to be x squared. Again, adding or subtracting 0, so it's always a plus in between, and then y squared equals, and then 8 squared, you can get your calculator out, that's 8 times 8, which is 64. So that is an answer that IXL will accept. All right, we're going to practice this one more time. So with this second example, again, when you're given a graph, the first thing that you want to do, you want to find the center, and you want to find the radius. So my center is here. I'm not going left or right, so my x coordinate is still 0, but I'm going up 8. So it's 0, 8. And then my radius extends over, so that guy would be 2. My radius is 2. Now I want to take that information and plug it into my standard form. So I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. I like to label everything just so that I know I'm plugging it in the right spot. So again, I know that this guy is h, this guy is k, this guy is r. And now I can start plugging in. So I have x minus, I'm replacing h with 0 squared, plus y minus, I'm replacing k with 8 squared, equals r is 2 squared. Again, I want to simplify this guy. So it's x minus 0. That's going to be just x squared. I'm not adding or subtracting anything to x. Now the y minus 8 stays the same. And then 2 squared simplifies to 4. That's an example that IXL would accept. And then 2 more examples. So they could also give it to you by giving you the properties. So it's just a bunch of words. We need to pull out the information that we need. So it says you have a circle with radius 5 centered at the origin. Again, we need the radius. We know that that's 5. And then it says it's centered at the origin. So keep in mind that the origin is 0, 0. So now we want to plug that in. Keep in mind this is h, that's k. So that's my center. So again, I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And then plugging everything in, I have x minus, now my h is 0, squared plus y minus, my k is also 0, squared equals my r is 5 squared. Again, whenever you're adding or subtracting 0, that just becomes x squared plus y squared. We're not adding anything, so we can get rid of all the parentheses. And then 5 squared is 5 times 5, that's 25. And that's the right answer. And then one last example together. So they tell us it's the circle with center 0, 3. So I know 0 is h, 3 is k, and radius 2 square root 13. So don't be scared by the square root. It's nothing crazy. It actually works out pretty nice. So again, same steps. I just want to plug it in. I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Taking everything they give me and plugging it in exactly as I see it. So it's x minus, my h is 0, squared, plus y minus, my k is 3, squared, equals, in parentheses, 2 square root 13 squared. Now, same thing goes as up here with my left side of my equation. So it's x minus 0, that just stays as x squared. The y minus 3 comes down, so plus y minus 3 squared. And now you might be like, what is going on with this guy? So with this, what we have to do is we have to do 2 squared and square root 13 squared. So we're squaring both of those terms. So I know that 2 squared, I'm running out of room, so I'm going to bring it down here. I know that 2 squared is equal to 4. So 2 squared is 4. That's good, I dealt with that. And then square root of 13 squared, that squared and square root cancel, leaving me with just 13. So 2 square root 13 squared simplifies to 4 times 13. And then, one last step, 4 times 13 gives me 52. So that's how you would simplify that guy. They do want it as simplified as possible. So that's probably the hardest part of these IXLs, and that would only come in when you're given the properties. So since it's a little bit tedious, I do want you to complete V3, which is all the graphing questions, and V4, which is all the property questions, like 3 and 4, to 70%, just because it's a little bit tedious. But I also have V7 listed here. If you complete that to 80%, you can get 4 points extra credit. What I can do is I can either add it to something that you're missing, or I can add it to the quiz that's coming up. Whatever the case may be, I'll give you 4 extra points on like an assignment that needs it the most, or I'll throw it on top of the quiz, whatever it is. So a good example of that would be if you got, say your grade book looks like this. You did Oh, my pen stopped working. Cool. So you did U9, say you got to a 2 out of 5, and then you did U10 and you got to a 4 out of 5. So that 4 points would bump U9 all the way up to 100 and U10 all the way up to 100 because I'd add 3 points to U9, 1 point to U10. All right? So it's not required, it's optional. I do want to take you through some of the IXLs though, so stick around just so that you can see what they look like and what they're really asking you for. So this is what it would look like on IXL. So it's the exact same questions as before, but it's a little finicky with how you plug it in. So they want us to write the equation of the circle in standard form given the graph. So I know that my center here is 0, 0. So I think I can write perfect. So my center is right here. So that guy is 0, 0. So this is the stuff that you should be writing on a separate sheet of paper as you work through. Then I need to know my radius. So if I count over, my radius equals 8. Now I can plug it into that formula. So I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. My center is 0, so it becomes x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals, my radius is 8 squared. Now, IXL doesn't even want the x minus 0 and y minus 0. They want you to simplify it even more. If you're adding or subtracting 0, you're not putting anything on it. 0 is nothing, right? So that's the same as x squared, always a plus sign in between, y squared equals, and then 8 times 8 gives me 64. All right? So that's how you would work through a question like this. Let's see if we can do one more. So for this one, actually, let's jump up a level because this one's pretty similar. So if I jump up a level, this is like an option that I have in the teacher version. Okay, let's do one like this. So again, I want to know the center and the radius. So looking at this picture, my center is located here. That point is over 6, so my x value is 6, and then it's not up or down, so my y is 0. Then I need to know my radius, so that extends to here. If I count that over, my r would be 3. So I want to plug that into my equation, so that would give me x, remember it goes in as the opposite, minus 6 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 3 squared. In IXL, the way that they want that, the x minus 6 is as simplified as it gets. So I'm pressing parentheses, x minus 6, squaring on the outside of the parentheses, then plus the y minus 0 squared, that gets simplified to just y squared, equals, and then 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. All right, so that's how those work. And then let's move into when we are given the information. So it's just written out for us. So here, I know my r is 3. It says it has a radius of 3. And then it's centered at the origin. So that's 0, 0. So plugging in, I have x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals 3 squared. Again, the x minus 0, y minus 0, that simplifies to just x squared plus just y squared equals 3 squared is 9. All right, let's jump up a level. Okay, so let's actually jump up another level. Could be harder. Okay, let's do this one. So looking here, let's erase all this nonsense. So they tell us the center is 9, 4, and my r is 10. Now that means that 9 is h, 4 is k. I want to plug that in. So that's x minus 9 squared plus y minus 4 squared remember it goes in as the opposite signs, equals 10 squared. The x minus 9 and y minus 4 can't be simplified. That goes in exactly as you see it. So it would just be x minus 9 squared on the outside, always a plus sign in between, y minus 4 squared on the outside equals, and then 10 squared is 100. You can either do that in your head or with a calculator. And that's how you do problems like that. All right. If you get to something like this, you can stop here. I'm going to change this to just 60%, just the V4. So I'll change that in the notes before I give it to you, but you're just going to go to 60% on V4, 70% on V3. And then you could do this guy for some bonus points. So this is graphing the circle. So here, it's giving me the equation. If I look, there's nothing being added or subtracted to x and y. So that means that my center would be 0, 0. So to graph, you have to find your center and your radius. My center is 0, 0. That's a throwback from last class. And then I know that 1 is equal to r squared, right? So to get r, I have to take the square root of both sides. So r would be 1. To graph, you want to start at the center. So I know my center is 0, 0, click. Then go over the amount of the radius. So the radius is 1, I'm going over 1. Press submit. All right, let's jump up a level. Let's jump up further. So again, this is not required. Honestly, it should be required. It's using all of the skills that we did. It's kind of a gift that I'm giving it to you as bonus, so you don't have to do it if you're having a stressful week. But if you can handle it, I would definitely recommend doing it. It's an easy bonus points. So here, I have -8, +8. So that would mean my center is, remember, it's always the opposite signs. So if this is -8, it's going to be +8. If this is +8, it's going to be -8. That's my center. And then remember, this is equal to r squared. So r squared equals 4. To figure out what r is, I have to take the square root, square root. Square root of 4 is 2. So I know my center is 8, -8. So I'm going over 8 and then down to -8, clicking. And then my radius is 2. So from there, I'm going over 2 in any direction. See how I can go over 2 this way and click, it would work. I can go up 2 and it would work. To the left 2, or I can go down 2. It really doesn't matter. You just have to pick one. So I'll go up 2. Press enter. But I did already. There you go. All right. So that's some nice, easy bonus points. I would highly recommend doing it. It's not very hard. If you have any questions at all, as always, please reach out. You can reach me in Remind, on email, on Google Classroom. I would be happy to work through this with you. Like we can sit on Google Meet and go through it together. You can share your screen, all that fun stuff. All right. Let me know if you have any questions at all. Thanks, guys.